Hello, everyone. I'm glad that you decided to be volunteers for Brainwaves. And in next few minutes, I will try to provide you with appropriate training so you feel ready to be able to interact with children and to complete this volunteer but very uh, rewarding, so say, activity. So I will share my presentation and what I'm going to do in next few minutes, I will basically lead you through all presentation that you are going to give to the children online this time because of all these COVID restrictions. So again, these will be exact slides that you will present. It's expected from you to be familiar with the Zoom or, well, I think we are using Zoom platform this time. But what I'm going to do from time to time, which is not what you're going to do during the school, during your visits to school, is basically I will explain you some activities that you have to do with the students, and I will give you some advices of how to deal with students and when to encourage questions and so on and so on. Again, at the end of this video, I will mention that you will get a quiz, like a Google form, where you will have to answer a few questions from this presentation, because simply we want to make sure that you actually watched this video and that you went through presentation. Our goal is to provide the best possible experience for the children. So we want you guys to be prepared. So questions won't be hard. And everyone who actually watched this presentation will be able to answer. So this will be, again, presentation that you are going to see. That you will present actually to the school children. And what we expect once when you see the screen is to be proactive and to be happy and to be smiley because you want to make them feel comfy. So you will say, hello, welcome to the Brain Waves. Isn't it this great day for learning about the brain? And most likely you will hear a teacher saying, yes, great, and they will maybe send some things on a chat. If we had this in person, there would be a few of them who would say, yay, great, and you show that same type of excitement, like you encourage them to be excited about learning about the brain. All what we want is them to be excited when they knowing that they will learn about the brain. So you will tell them. So let's now talk about the importance of the brain. So what we are going to talk about is what the brain exactly does, how the brain works, and why it is so important to protect the brain. And more important, how we do that, how we protect our brain. So you encourage question now. Tell me, what do you think? You can send it on the chat if you don't feel brave enough to answer. Why it is so important to protect our brain? Why is brain so important? Do we have any use of it? Well, it is important because it controls basically everything. It controls our ability to think, move, see, hear, taste, or smell. So everything what makes you being a human. And then you will also probably get some questions, some suggestions on a chat. From my experience now having those online presentations with young children in schools, they don't feel really talking, but they do write on a chat. Then you ask, so what do you think? How much the brain weighs? And here you will get some weird comments, but it's important to let them actually tell you what they think. And then you read and acknowledge, like, yeah, you are close. Yes, you are close. What do you think? And then you say, wow, it's like 1,200 grams. Surprised? And then they will say, yes, no, whoa. You say, yeah, what do you think? Is it more heavy or less heavy? And it's important to encourage conversation with them. Now, let's talk about something that builds brain, and that's cell. So cells are building blocks of our body. And as a part of our body, a brain is built of cells that are called neurons. So what do you think? in those 1200 grams, how many neurons are? And they will say something. And then you say, whoa, someone was close actually, or someone was not closed. There are 100 billion, there are 100 billion neurons in our brain. Surprised? So what's important here is to encourage questions and to see how they think, because in that way you are developing some kind of connections with them. And even though it's online, they will feel like they belong to the class, and they would feel like they're actually learning and they are having a fun. And they will also feel like their opinion matters, because it does. Now, let's talk about those small building blocks of a brain, neurons. So the brain actually looks like a big messenger center, like a big call center. Think about that. You have all those people calling and answering the phone and sending messages. So those people are neurons, because messages in brain are sent and received through neurons all the time. So neurons are telling us how to think, how to sense, how to touch, how to smell, how to see. More important, neurons do not grow back if they are injured. So that's why it's so important to prevent that injury. So neurons are pretty different than all other cells that we have in our body. They are specialized and they have very special appearance. They are built of a body of the neuron and a small teeny tiny these things like called dendrites, little branches, and one big branch called axon. So small branch dendrite receives messages from other neurons, while the big branch axon sends message to another neuron. So again, receiving, sending messages in big call center called brain. And people who do that, like individuals who do that, are neurons. Just make analogy so they can imagine what's actually happening. And this is the great animation showing you what's actually going on inside the brain in neuron. As you can see, there is a message received by teeny tiny branch called dendrite, travels through body of neuron and then through the axon, and then it's received by another branch, another small branch in another neuron, and so on and so on. So if neuron is longer, that means it will take a longer time to send signal. So if you have a shorter neuron, that means the signal will travel faster. Very simple, the distance matters. Now let's talk a little bit about the anatomy of the brain. So how brain actually looks. And again, you will see that jelly brain later on, but this is the moment when you introduce them with the actual appearance of the brain. So anatomy. Brain is built of a few lobes, 4 of them. 4 parts. Lobe is a part of your brain. One part is called frontal lobe. Second part is called parietal lobe. Temporal lobe, a third one, and the last but not least, occipital one. Now, let me ask you something. What do you think that happens when we damage any of our lobes or parts of the brain? And then they will say something or write it on the chat, and you will acknowledge that, but then you will say, well, our life wouldn't be the same. And I will explain you in a few seconds why. So think about this. Here is one example. Rob fell off his bike and he did not wear helmet. When he came home, he had a trouble doing his homework, math homework. He couldn't make any plan and he had a hard time speaking. So why? What actually happened? What happened is that once when he fell off his bike, Rob damaged his frontal lobe. And that's because frontal lobe is controlling speaking, thinking. That's why he couldn't speak or think. Now, Brittany fell while she was snowboarding. Again, she wasn't wearing a helmet. Later that night, she was watching TV. She noticed that her vision is very blurry. Which lobe was damaged? Occipital lobe. So that is because in your brain, occipital lobe controls vision. And you can always encourage wear helmet when you are riding a bike and so on, because we want them to understand not just why it's important to protect the brain, but also how they can protect the brain. Now, our brain controls 5 senses. And those 5 senses are vision, touch, smell, taste, and hearing. Have you heard about any of these? And they will say, yes, we did. Now let's talk about the smell. What do you think? Would it be cool if you couldn't feel a smelly sock? And some of them will say probably, oh yeah, I don't want to smell stinky things and so on. It's important to emphasize is that if you lose your smell, that can actually hurt you. But first, explain them how the sense of smell works. So you will explain them what is in your booklet. So all what you have in your line of smell is olfactory smell area in the nose. That's where you actually start feeling some smell. So your nose is the first step reaction. Then the signal travels through all the nose to the olfactory bulb, and then to the olfactory center in the brain, where you actually develop the sense of smell in your brain. So throughout olfactory area, all up to olfactory bulb, and all to the olfactory center in the brain. Now, you will mention, so remember those 4 lobes that we talked about? So which lobe controls smell? It's temporal lobe. So if you damage your temporal lobe, you won't be able to feel anything that stinks. Do you think that's good? And many of them will say, yes, but what you will say is, well, imagine there is a fire or there is a gas leak in your building, but you don't have a sense of smell. So you can't feel that gas stinking. So that can damage you because you wouldn't know what's going on and you could pass out and you can be seriously injured. So it's not really good not having a sense of smell. Yes, it might be good not being able to feel this stinky sock, but your sense of smell can actually help you to protect yourself many times in life. That's why it's very important to protect the brain. And we protect the brain by wearing a helmet when we are riding a bike, and when we are crossing the street, we look right, back and forward, and we are always careful. Make sense? So again, what I was doing when I was teaching this, I always encourage that part of a sense of wear a helmet to protect your brain, to protect your sense of smell. And now let's go to some questions. So to repeat, to summarize everything about the sense of smell, there are specific molecules, compounds that are called odorants. They are sensed inside of our nose through olfactory or smelling area. And then the signal from odorants is sent to the olfactory bulb all over to the olfactory center in the brain where we actually develop a sense of smell. And now I'm asking you, how we call substances that you can smell? They will say odorants. And where are molecules received? In olfactory area. And where in the brains they are perceived? In temporal lobe. So if you damage temporal lobe, you wouldn't be able to run away if there is a gas leak in your building. And this is the activity time where what you can do now, since you are at home, you can bring some very stinky food, something that might be stinky for you, or you can tell them that this is, I don't know, stinky milk, and you will smell it and say, oh, so it's gross. So this smell is not nice. Do you think that which smell you don't like? Can you think about something? And then they will answer, I don't like it. But let's go to the better things. Is there any smell that you like? And then you can have something that you really like. Like, for example, we were using cinnamon, like cinnamon stick, and I love that smell. So you can, or rose, or perfume. You can have perfume now. It comes like, I love this perfume. So it makes me feel very nice when I smell it. And that's all thanks to my brain. Bad thing can happen if you hurt your temporal lobe, because temporal lobe controls your sense of smell. You can develop something called anosmia, and you lose your sense of smell. And again, encourage them to answer, is there any situation that can be dangerous if you could not smell? And you can add something by yourself. You don't have to use my example. You can ask them to add something other than what you mentioned. Now let's go to the another sense, a sense of taste. So where is a sense of taste? Where do we feel the taste? And what you can do, you can tell them, do you like, what do you think that sense of taste is important? How would you feel if you wouldn't be able to feel this amazing pizza taste? And then they will say, oh, that would be horrible. Like, it will be completely opposite than what you saw with the smell. And then you will have a question. Has anyone noticed that if you are sick, your food doesn't taste very good? And everyone will say, yeah, that's true. What do you think? Why is that? That is because, believe me or not, sense of smell and sense of taste work together. So they cooperate. So if you cannot smell when you are sick, you won't be able to feel the taste so high. And the sense of taste is on our tongue. And the way how we develop a sense of taste is through taste buds and the signal. So when we eat food, we sense the taste through those taste buds located on our tongues, and the signal of the taste is sent to our brain, where we actually develop the sense of sweet, sour, salty. So here's how this thing operates. So taste buds are everywhere on our tongue, but there are different distributions. So there are more taste buds in the front of our tongue, but less taste buds are in the back. That means that the highest sense of taste is on the top of your tongue. And that's because all those buds that are receiving a signal from your food are located there. And there are 4 tastes. And can you tell me which one is your favorite? I know mine, but I want to hear yours. Now encourage them to tell you, and they will probably write or say, like, it's a bitter. Do you think bitter is good? Most of them will say no, but you will say, oh, I love coffee. Coffee is bitter, right? They will say, sweet. What is sweet? What do you think? They will say chocolate, cupcake, or something like that. And then you ask them, do you like chocolate? And they will say, yes. I used to have some students who say, no, I don't like chocolate, but that's usually because they want to stand in front of everyone and to be different. But it's always good to encourage those people, like, okay, so if sweet is not your favorite taste, what then is? And you mentioned, think about something sour or something sweet. So can you think about something sour? And they will say, I don't know, pickles or something like that. Do you like sour? And then you say, oh, salty. Think about when you have a birthday party. What is the most important thing to have? Like snacks, salty snacks, or maybe a cake. So those kind of things. So encourage conversation. And all these great food that you eat on your birthday parties or gatherings, you feel thanks to your taste buds, and you know about that feelings thanks to your brain. And where in your brain you actually develop a sense of taste in the special lobe called parietal lobe. And now let's go again through the whole summary. And I always encourage you to go through the summary before you ask them questions. So again, this will be questions that you will ask, but you tell them. So the same like for smell. So to summarize, the food and all those things that you eat, like food, drink, are called tastants. They are received on your tongue, on your taste buds, and they are perceived in brain in parietal lobe. And then now I'm asking you, how do we call those molecules, substances that we can taste in our food? Tastants. And where are they received? You can show them. Taste buds. And where in the brain they will be perceived? Parietal lobe. So you encourage those questions, but you remind them, so like a big summary. And this is activity time that we usually were able to complete because we had in-person interaction. So they would have a like a cup where we dissolve sugar, and then they would taste it. Oh, this is salt, this is sweet. You can have like coffee or or I don't know, chocolate or something, and you can taste like, this is chocolate, sweet. I feel it. It's really sweet. And then having coffee, oh, this is bitter. Oh, or sour. So those kind of things I think will be encouraging. So then you can encourage them to have that kind of activity during their break. Like try with your tongue and try to put a chocolate on the top of your tongue and then to put on the back, and tell me in which part the sense of taste is stronger, because if it's strong, it's stronger in the top. And the reason why it's stronger on the top of the tongue is because taste buds are more frequently distributed on the top of your tongue than on the back. And next sense that our brain controls is the vision. How horrible would it be if we cannot see this beautiful world, including a cold weather and snow outside? And we start this vision process with our eye. So eye is the first organ in sense of smell, in sense of vision. Our eye has very specific anatomy, which contains eyelid, this one, pupil, the little blacky thing inside, sclera, and iris around the pupil. But eye is way more complicated inside. So what you see here is how your eye looks from the inside. It's something that we don't see from outside, but is actually very developed. And here is what we have here. So this is where the signal is received, like a light, and there is a lens inside. That's what we don't see. And there are some other things here that make eye complete. The most important is the retina, where your vision cells are. And then there is a blind spot where you don't have any vision cells, and there is an optic nerve that leads to the brain. You notice that I mentioned vision cells. So vision cells are rods and cones, and they have special duties in our eye. One of them is in charge for different color vision, where the other one is in charge in black and white vision. So cones are for colors and the rods are for black and white vision. So what's happening is that light is received here in eye where the lens is, and light is traveling through the retina and through the rods and cones, vision cells located in retina. And then the signal goes through the optic nerve, and optic nerve leads to the center of brain that actually controls vision. And there is a special lobe called occipital lobe that controls vision. And now let's summarize. We are receiving as a signal a light from the outside. Those signals are received in retina, and in retina there are two types of vision cells, or photoreceptors. This is a new word. Rods for dark white vision and cones for color vision. Information of this signal from retina exists due to the eye at the blind spot. So exits the eye at the blind spot. And this is another thing that I forgot to mention, and you will see in the eye here. So when you are explaining, you will explain lens, you will explain retina, and you will say that there is a place that does not have any vision cells, and that's the place where optic nerve leaves the eye, and that's called blind spot. So information where from our retina exits, so not optic nerve, so where information exits the eye. So light is received in your lens. There are some vision cells, rod and cones in the retina. That light information is received by those cells in the eye, and the information now exits the eye at the blind spot where there are no vision cells, and now the information about the light travels to the occipital lobe in the brain. And now I'm asking you, we see light. Light rays are received at retina. There are two types of cells, rods and cones. Information from retina exits the eye at blind spot, and information is received in occipital lobe. And this is usually activity time that they like the most. And luckily we can do that now, even though there is an online version of these presentations. And this is called color after image. So what you will ask them is, after you show them picture, you will ask them to stare 1 full minute into this picture without looking anywhere else. Just basically stare. Like, don't move eyes, emphasize that. And then you will change a picture, and they should see that color has been changed. Some of them might not see. I don't. I was never able to see it. But there are people who are. And then you will show them a next picture, Canadian flag, and you explain the same thing. They might see the change in color, and they always like to see US flag as well. So you have 3 activity types, and if they are able to see how color changes, they will love it. They will be all excited. And next one is reversible figure illusion, which will be very cool. Like, you tell them, what do you think? What's the first thing you see here? So some of them will say they see faces. Some of them will say, like for example, I only saw the glass of wine, a cup of wine. So there will be different things. So and you tell them that all these illusions are actually because of different reception in your brain from a signal, so because of different receptions of the light signals that are differently perceived in the brain. And now hearing. What I would also encourage before going to hearing is, so do you, like I would say, so do you like how your brain receives a light and forms a different senses of colors? They will say, oh yeah, it's great. Yeah. So imagine if you can't do that, if you damage your occipital lobe in the brain and you can't see. That's why it's extremely important to wear helmet to protect your brain so you can be able to see all these nice color after imaging, etc., etc. Next sense is hearing. So is it important to hear things? How many of you like listening music? So you are able to listen music thanks to your sense of hearing, and here is how. So what you can do here is basically encourage them to clap, and then what we were doing when we did activities in person, like one person would close eyes and the other one would clap, and then the person should say where the sound comes from. So here you can say, so can somebody tell me what is the most favorite sound? Is it a bird song? Is it a sound of car maybe? Is it a sound of your mother's voice? I mean, there will be all sorts of different different thinkings and different ideas. And what I would do, I would really like to hear, and then I would share my own specific sound. I would say, wow, I love listening Taylor Swift. If I couldn't listen her, I would feel really depressed. Something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be Taylor Swift. I just remembered her because that was the last song I heard. So, beside music, can you think about something else? Why it's extremely important to have a sense of hearing? And then they will maybe chat. It's important for us to communicate because we talk and I tell you, you hear what I say. Your teacher tells you, you hear what teacher says, and then you go home and do your homework because you heard what your teacher said when she or he was explaining. Another important thing, danger. Have you ever heard fire alarms or smoke alarms? Yeah, that's the same thing. So if you imagine you don't hear and there is a fire alarm because building needs to be evacuated, you can be seriously injured. Sense of hearing help us to be aware of our surroundings. And again, last but not least, music, our enjoyment. Think about your favorite sound that makes you happy, or sound that you hear and that can save your life. And again, there are organs that are helping us to hear, except the brain. So there are three parts of our ears: outer, middle, and inner ear. And the signal from hearing is received in temporal lobe in our brain. So to summarize, and this is what you will ask, I would always summarize. So we hear signals that are called sound waves or sound, simple. In our ear, there is a part called cochlea. Those specific cells in cochlea are transmitting our information from sound waves to the brain. And in the brain, that sound information is received in temporal lobe. And now I'm asking you, what do we hear? Sound waves. Sound energy is received at cochlea, and it's received in the temporal lobe in the brain. And now the sense of touch. Very important. I like hugging my cat. And if I don't have sense of touch, I wouldn't be able to feel how fluffy she is. So there are different types of touch. Pain. How would it be if you couldn't feel pain? Most of them will say, oh, that would be great. And you tell them, oh, hold on there, we will come to that point. Is it really good not to feel pain? Temperature, hot, cold, pressure, and vibration. Now, if you can't feel pain or temperature and you touch hot stove, you would burn yourself, right? So again, having a sense of touch will help you to protect yourself. So not only to be able to feel a fluffiness of your cat or a puppy, it will also help you to save your body, to protect your body. And what part of brain controls touch? Parietal lobe is the one that controls it. Now, what you will do as a summary here is, so our touch sense starts in our skin. So receptors for sense of touch are everywhere in our skin, but they are not evenly distributed. There are more receptors in particular parts of the body, and some of them are more frequently distributed. For example, if you look your hand on your palm, there are more touch receptors and they're close together. But in the back of arm, there are less and they're more far away. Now, let me ask you, where are touch receptors? They might say all over the body and say, which specific part? Skin. And where is the signal received? Parietal lobe. And this is the activity called 2-point discrimination. So, you again mentioned on the palm, there are more touch receptors and they're close together. The back, there are less touch receptors and they're far away. Now, you will play video here from that 2-point discrimination. That's how the activity is called. You will have like cotton swab, 2 of them, and you will press here. That feels like 1. But if you press here, it will feel like 2. And that is because of the distribution of your receptors. And the last but not least, concussions. So what are concussions? Did any of you maybe have concussion? And some maybe did because they're children, they fall down often. So you will say, oh, this is a type of brain injury. Yes. So any blow to head, face, neck, body, which causes sudden jarring of the brain inside of skull may cause concussion. Anything. So let's play some guessing game. Think about, especially you guys who had concussion. What are some physical symptoms of concussion? And then they will probably write or say. So it can be headache. Yeah, most commonly. Dizziness, fever. You will feel sore throat. You feel like you're sick, right? What are other physical symptoms? What can happen to your body? So you can be horribly sensitive to the light or noise. You can even throw up, or you can feel that pressure in your head. Also, you can have some more permanent consequences, like you can become confused or you can have difficulty remembering. So you injured your brain and now you have a hard time remembering what you studied. That would make difficult your school and you wouldn't be able to do your homework so well. You would have a hard time to focus and to concentrate. You might even become paranoid or scared of everything, feeling like you are in the fog, like you are lost. Are there emotional symptoms of concussion? Well, yes, they are. It's your brain, controls everything. You can be extremely happy for no reason. which is not so bad, but that doesn't mean you should be. You can be moody or grumpy, or unfortunately sad, or feeling very confident. But that is not always a good thing. You can feel excited, you can be nervous, anxious. So, concussion symptoms are listed here as a big, like as a big table. So you can put that in a big summary. What I forgot to mention here is that when you do this guessing game, is actually asking them a question. So what are symptoms? And then you will fever, headache, sore throat. So some of them are symptoms of concussion, some of them are not symptoms of concussion. So you have a list, for example, what does it mean? Like if you is confusion one of symptoms, they will say yes. Or those kind of things. Like you ask them to say what do they think? Is hard to concentrate symptom of concussion? Yes. Is paranoia symptom of concussion? Yes. So that's why it's called a guessing game. So not all of them are symptoms of concussion. So there is a list of them that are, and you will mention that. What we might add here is basically circling those that are most common symptoms of concussion. But at the end, we give them this final summary, what is actually symptom of concussion, and then you mention. So let's now summarize. In concussions, we can have some physical symptoms like losing a conscience, we can pass out, or we can have headache, or we can feel vomiting or nausea. We feel pressure in our head, dizziness, low energy, sensitivity to light or noise. But we can also have some cognitive thinking symptoms. Confusion, difficulty remembering, feeling like in fog, or emotionally, I don't feel like myself. I'm sad, I'm moody, I'm nervous. This means that some of these symptoms are not actually symptoms of concussion. So you can feel excited, yes, so, but you can, what I was doing, like feeling excited is a symptom of concussion. It's like, no. Happiness, no. Feeling confident, no. So basically, all bad things are symptoms of concussion. There are some questions that you will answer at the end of this video. Actually, you will receive a form and we will probably ask you about symptoms of concussion. At the end, you should say, so I hope you all enjoyed in learning about the brain and having all these amazing activities. At the end, what I would encourage is protect your brain, because it's important for you to have it happy and healthy, because the brain helps you to feel the world around you. Brain controls the way you see things. Brain controls the way you hear things or you feel things. At the end, if you injure your brain, your keyword is star. Stop playing, tell adult, get assessed, and the rest. And thank you all for watching. And let's now repeat. How do we protect our brain? We wear a helmet. We look from both sides when we go across the street. And important is to wear a helmet and to wear it right. Now, one last question. Should you wear a helmet over a baseball hat or ponytail? No, of course not. And this Jello brain is amazing animation that shows actually how the brain looks in your skull. So if you cut your skull, this is how the brain looks, and it's all jelly. That's how it actually looks. So I hope that you all had a good time, and I would be happy to take your questions now and in future, and thank you for watching our video. Now, you will receive a Google form with the questions that we prepared, and what we would like for you to do is to answer those questions. We will receive those answers because we again want you to be trained and able to answer, since we want those children that watch our videos and participate in our activity to learn the most from what we are doing. Anyway, for all questions, you can direct to the Brainwaves committee. We are going to be happy to help as much as we can. And again, thank you for watching.